Now, I have done a lot of pistol dot reviews on this channel. And back at SHOT Show in January, I met up with a company called Aimwin. And right after SHOT Show, they sent out a couple red dots for me to do a review on, the PN320 and the PN330. Now, inside the box that those optics came in, there was a brochure with a coming soon page. And there was an optic on that coming soon page that I could not wait to get my hands on. Well, today is that day. We are going to be doing the review on the Aimwin PE320 multi-reticle enclosed red dot. I want to give a big shout out to Copper Jacket Arms. Now, Copper Jacket Arms is an online store owned by my good buddy Matt from the RTT Guns and Gear channel. And all the factory ammo that we're going to be using in this video today can be picked up at Copper Jacket Arms. And if you want to check them out yourself, head to my website, go to the weekly deals section, and there's always a direct link right to Copper Jacket Arms. Alright, before we start going over all the specs and the features of the dot, I am going to bring a picture up on the screen and show you everything that comes in the box. Now, it does come with the battery already installed, and it does come with an extra battery. There's also 4 sets of screws, the tools that you need to mount the optic. It does have a lens cleaning cloth, the user manual, and the best part is it actually comes with the RMR to acro adapter plate, because some of these optics do not come with this plate. So let's take a close look at this optic. So the PE320 is an enclosed emitter multi-reticle red dot. Does have a side load battery. It runs on a CR2032 battery, and it does have 50,000 hours of battery life, but obviously that's going to be if you run it on the lowest setting. And the other super cool thing is, as you can see right here on top, this does have a solar panel. And we are going to test this out when we get it out to the range. We'll take the battery out and see if this optic will run off the solar panel. Now on this side, we have the plus and minus buttons, which are very big and easy to see. And that is how you adjust your brightness level. And this does have 9 daytime settings and 2 MV settings. Now, if we look at the bottom, it is a fully sealed unit. You do have a recoil lug right here, which will slide right into this slot on your RMR to acro adapter plate. Now, the body on the PE320 is constructed out of 6061 T6 aluminum. And being that this is a fully enclosed optic, it does have an IPX7 waterproof rating. Now let's go over the dimensions on the PE320. This has a length of 1.78 inches. It is 1.38 inches wide and 1.2 inches tall. And this optic weighs in at 62 grams. Now this does have a hard anodized finish, and it is shockproof up to 2,000 Gs. Alright, we're going to take a look at the dot first. Now this has a 3 MOA red dot. I do have it turned all the way up. I'm getting a little bit of starbursting, but that's because I have astigmatism and it has nothing to do with the optic. Now, like I said, it does have a multi-reticle system. So in order to switch to the next reticle, you're going to hold down the plus button. It takes about 3 seconds. And now we're running the dot and the circle. And the circle on this is a 36 MOA circle. Now, if you want to just run the circle, then you're going to hold the plus button again for 3 seconds. And now we're running just the circle. Now, I know it's hard for the camera to pick up the different reticles, so I'm going to bring those up on the screen so you can see what they look like. But I will say this is definitely nice and bright, and we should have no issues with the brightness on this when we get it out to the range. Now, one thing that I always like to do in every one of these optic review videos is check the windage and elevation to see how tactile and audible they are. Now, these are 1 MOA per click, and you do get 50 MOA of total travel on the windage and on the elevation. So let's check our windage first. Ooh, that is nice. Very tactile, very audible. One other thing that I forgot to mention is you can see the up and the arrow very clearly for the elevation, and the same with the R and the arrow on the windage. Very nice. Same thing with the elevation. Very tactile and audible. Nice solid stop in between the clicks. I like that. Let me set my microphone down so you can hear it for yourself. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before I go get this mounted up on the test gun is the window size. And this has a nice big 24 by 20 millimeter window. So I'm going to go get this mounted up on the test gun, and I will see you out at the range. Now, as soon as I got to the range, I got my USPSA and steel targets set up, and the first thing I had to do was get this optic zeroed. Now, when I fired the first shot, it was high to the right, and it took about 6 rounds to get it dialed in right where I wanted it. Now, what impressed me right off the bat was, even though it was a really bright, sunny day, I turned the optic all the way up, and then I turned it back down to the 8 setting, and I was getting very little starbursting out of the 3 MOA dot. All right, here we go. We got all alphas. We got all our hits on steel. And we've got all our hits on this piece of steel. And our last target. We got all alphas, but we got a Charlie right there. Now, when I started shooting my second string on the USPSA and steel targets, I turned on the 3 MOA dot with the 36 MOA circle. And even though I very rarely ever run the multi-reticle system on a dot, I just prefer the red dot or the green dot, I was blown away with how crisp the dot and the circle was together. I was getting 0 starbursting when I was running that 3 MOA dot with the 36 MOA circle. All right, our first target, we got all alphas, but we do have 1 Charlie. We got all our hits on steel, and we got all our hits on our next piece of steel. This target's a little ugly. We got 4 alphas, and we've got 2 Charlies. Now, after I was done shooting the USPSA and the steel targets, I decided to move on to shooting some 10-shot groups. And then I went back to just running the 3 MOA dot. And even though my groups weren't that good, I was not having any issues seeing that 3 MOA dot on the yellow and black targets. Now, after I shot the first 2 10-shot groups, I went over to my truck, I put the tailgate down, and I started racking the slide with the optic on the tailgate, and then I went back and shot my last 2 10-shot groups, and I'm happy to say that the optic held 0 just fine. So far, I'm pretty impressed with this dot. It's plenty bright enough. I'm getting very little starbursting with the 3 MOA dot. And the most impressive thing for me right out of the gate is the window size on this enclosed emitter dot. A lot of times, these enclosed emitter pistol dots, they have pretty small windows, but that is not the case with this Aimwin PE320. So with the bigger window, and how flat this Daria DY9 island shoots, I was able to transition from target to target pretty quickly. Now, another super cool thing with this optic is the fact that it has a solar panel on the top of the optic. And I wanted to test the solar panel while I was at the range, and I forgot. But that's okay because I came back home, and as soon as I got settled in the studio, I went ahead and I took the battery out. I held the optic up to the camera to make sure that the dot was off, and it was. And then I held the dot up to the light in the studio. And as you can see, the solar worked perfect on the optic. The dot was back on. Now, the next thing I wanted to do with this optic was shoot while I was moving. And with the big window on this PE320, I was having no issues putting my shots on the steel plates. And I was having no issues seeing the 3 MOA red dot on the white painted steel plates. Now, the next thing I wanted to test was the IPX7 waterproof rating. So I filled a cooler up in the studio, I turned the dot on, and I submerged the optic for a half hour. And again, I am happy to say that the optic held up to the water test. In fact, now I'm filming this the next day, and there is no moisture or fogging or anything going on inside the optic. So far, the optic had passed all the tests that I'd put it through. Now, I ended up racking up a lot of rounds on this optic because not only was I doing the review on the optic, I was also doing the review on the Daria DY9 Island. So by the end of the day, I had a little over 500 rounds racked up on it. And I'm happy to say the optic did not loosen up on the RMR to acro plate. It held up to racking the slide on the tailgate and 500 rounds of live fire. And by then, I was pretty confident in this optic. So let's go over all the pros and cons of the Aimwin PE320. And we're going to go over the cons first. One of my biggest cons with this optic, and it's with a lot of the enclosed emitter dots that mount on an RMR to acro adapter plate, is how high the optic sits on the gun. Now, the Daria DY9 Island does not have suppressor height sights. I really wish they would have put those on it, considering it's an optic ready pistol. But with as high as this optic is sitting, I don't even think suppressor height sights would work with this optic. So that's kind of one of the trade-offs to going with a more rugged enclosed emitter dot like this. So that's just something that you want to keep in mind, because if the optic goes down, well, you're not going to be able to use your iron sights. Now, my second and last con with this optic is the brightness level adjustment buttons on the side of the optic. And if you look, they stick off the side pretty far. I would have liked to seen these recessed in just a little bit more. And one thing that I kind of worry about once in a while when your buttons are sticking out like this is that when you have the gun in the holster and you're riding in your car or you're bumping up against things, that you could possibly turn these buttons up or down. And that's why I don't like seeing these buttons stick out this far. One thing that they could have done to combat that is put a lockout mode on this, where you would hold both buttons at the same time and lock it out. So basically you would get the dot adjusted right where you want it, you lock it out, and you don't have to worry about that. So that is something that I would like to see them add to this optic in the future. So now we can start going over all the pros with the Aimwin PE320, and there are a lot of pros when it comes to this optic. Number one, side load battery. Every optic should either have a side load or top load battery in 2025. And one other cool thing that Aimwin did with the screws that came with the optic, they actually sent an extra battery tray screw, because these are very small flathead screws and they are very easy to lose because this screw is not captured. Now, while we're speaking about the battery door, I want to talk about the shake awake. And I don't like to test the shake awake now until after we get back from the range and we get the round count up on the optic. And I'm happy to say that the shake awake is working great. So as far as all the function tests go with this optic, it passed all of them. The other awesome thing about the optic is the fact that it does have a multi-reticle system, and a lot of people nowadays like to run a dot and circle. I personally don't care about it. I would rather just run a dot, but with this optic, you have that choice. The other plus, obviously, after we shot the 500 rounds, was we never lost zero. And my favorite thing with this optic is the fact that it is an enclosed emitter dot. And the biggest reason I'm leaning more nowadays towards these enclosed emitter dots is the fact that they are so easy to clean. I've got big hands, so when I have a dot with an open emitter, especially an RMSC footprint dot, it is very hard for me to get my finger and get in there with a lens cleaning cloth and clean the back of that lens. With an enclosed emitter dot, you don't have to worry about that. You got a piece of glass here in the back and a piece in the front. Get your lens cleaning cloth and just wipe down the lens and you are good to go. And this dot did get pretty dirty throughout the day due to the fact that this island does have those 4 ports right in the top of the barrel. So I was getting quite a bit of stuff slung on the front lens, and it was super easy to wipe it off every so often. So I guess the next question is, do I recommend this optic? And I'm going to have to give you a big hell yeah. I think this is possibly my favorite enclosed emitter pistol dot that I've reviewed so far on this channel. It's big, but it's not too big. I think it's a really good looking optic, and I think it looks really good on this Daria DY9 island. Now, I really want to thank Aimwin for sending this out to the channel. Like I said at the very beginning of the video, I was so excited for this optic when I saw it in the coming soon portion of that brochure that came with the first 2 optics they sent me to review. And they absolutely hit it out of the park with this optic. Now, we may end up coming back and doing a follow-up video because I'm actually going to take this gun and we're going to do a comparison video between the original DY9 and the DY9 Island, and this optic is going to stay on here for that test because that is one of the videos that I'm going to be filming next. So by the end of that video, we will probably have close to 1,000 rounds racked up on this optic. So I may just put out a short or something like that and let you know that I've got 1,000 rounds on it and that I definitely recommend this for carry. As of right now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is going to be a good carry option. I really want to get 1,000 rounds on it before I tell you that. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.